Good morning, year ones. Now, on this sort of miserable day, very windy, I thought I'd cuddle up on the sofa and read you the next part of our story, The Enchanted Wood. Now, if you remember at the end of the last chapter, poor old saucepan man, can you remember what happened? His land had gone. So we're going to start at chapter 16. What happened in the rocking land? The rocking land was really most annoying. No sooner did the children stand up very carefully and try to walk a few steps than the earth beneath them either fell away or tipped up or slanted sideways in a very alarming manner. Then down they all went, rolling over and over. The saucepan man made a tremendous noise and almost cried when he saw how battered his saucepans and kettles were getting. "Moonface!" yelled Joe. "How can we get out of here? Don't you know?" "We can only get out by going down the ladder that leads to the faraway tree," shouted back Moonface, who was busy rolling down a little hill that had suddenly appeared. "Look for it all the time, or we'll never get away from here." As soon as the rocking land leaves the place where the faraway tree is, we've no way of escape. That gave the others a shock. The thought of living in a land of bumps and jolts was not at all pleasant. They all began to look out for the hole through which they had come into the rocking land. Soon the earth began to do something very different. It heaved up and down very quickly, as if it were breathing fast. When it heaved up, it threw the children and the others into the air. And when it breathed downwards, they rolled into holes and stayed there. It was all dreadfully uncomfortable. "I'm getting awfully bruised," shouted Beth. "For goodness sake, let's find a place on this land where it's not quite as fidgety. I think we must be on the worst bit." As soon as the earth stopped heaving about, they all ran hard to where a wood grew. And there, just inside the wood, they saw a shop. It was such a surprising thing to see in the rocking land that they all stopped and stared. "What does it sell?" said Joe. "You don't feel well?" said the saucepan man, quite deaf for a time. "I don't either. I feel as if I've been on a ship in a very rough sea." "I said, what does the shop sell?" said Joe. "No, I didn't hear a bell," said the saucepan man, looking round as if he expected to see an enormous bell somewhere. Joe gave up. He looked hard at the shop. It was just a wide stall with a tiny house behind it. No one seemed to be there, but smoke rose from the chimney, so someone must live there, Joe thought. "Come on," he said to the others. "Take hold of each other's hands so that we keep together. We'll go and see this funny shop and see if we can get help." They walked up to it. The stall was piled high with cushions of every colour, each one with a rope tied to it. "How funny," said Beth in astonishment. "Cushions with ropes. Now, who in the world would want to buy cushions here?" "Well, I would, for one," said Moonface at once. "My goodness, if I had a fine fat cushion tied on the front of me and another tied at the back, I wouldn't mind being bumped around nearly so much." "Oh, of course, that's what the cushions and ropes are for," said Beth joyfully. "Let's buy some, then we shan't get bruised anymore." Just then a sharp-nosed little woman with cushions tied all around her came out of her tiny house and looked at the children. She even had a small cushion tied on her head, and she did look funny. Franny giggled. She was a dreadful giggler. The woman looked cross and glared at Franny. "Do you want to buy my cushions?" she asked. "Yes, please," said Moonface, and he reached into his pocket. "How much are they?" "5 silver pieces of money each," said the woman, her little green eyes shining as she saw Moonface putting his hand into his pocket for the money. Moonface looked at her in dismay. "That's much too high a price," he said. "I've only got 1 silver piece." "Have you got any money, Saucepan Man?" "No, we don't sell honey," said the Saucepan Man. "Money, money, money!" shouted Moonface, showing the Saucepan Man his 1 silver piece. "Oh, money," he said, taking out a round leather bag from one of his kettles. "Yes, I've plenty in here." But the round leather bag was empty. The Saucepan Man stared at it in dismay. "All my money must have fallen out when I rolled about," he said. "There's nothing left." The children had no money at all. The sharp-nosed little woman shook her head when Moonface begged her to lend them some cushions in return for his silver piece. "I don't lend anything," she said, and went back to her house, banging the door loudly. "It's too bad," said Moonface, taking hold of Joe's hand and walking off gloomily. "Mean old thing! Oh, look, there are some more people, all wearing cushions." Sure enough, they met plenty of odd-looking folk, well padded with cushions of all colours, sizes and shapes, walking carefully about the paths. One man wore a big quilt all around him, which Beth thought was a fine idea. "The rocking land is quite peaceful for a change," she said to Franny. But she spoke too soon. For even as she said these words, the earth began to heave up, first one way and then another. Ooh, over and over went the children and everybody else, and rolled here and there and up and down as the land jumped up, first in one place and then in another. "Wish I had a few cushions," cried Moonface, who had crashed on his nose and bent it sideways. Crash, clank, bang went the Saucepan Man, rolling on his kettles and pans very noisily. "Oh, look!" shrieked Beth suddenly in delight, and pointed back towards the little wood where the shop was. The earth there had risen steeply upwards, and all the cushions were rolling down towards the children. "Grab them!" shouted Joe. So they all caught the cushions and began to tie them firmly round them. My goodness, it did make a difference when they rolled about. "It serves that mean old woman right," said the Saucepan Man, as he tried his hardest to put cushions around him and his saucepans. Suddenly, one of the people of the rocking land gave a frightened shout and clutched hold of a nearby tree. A strange wind blew with a low musical sound. "Now what's going to happen?" cried Moonface. "Get hold of a tree! Get hold of a tree!" shouted the people round about it. "When the wind makes that sound, it means the whole of the land is going to tip up sideways and try to roll everyone off. Your only hope is to catch hold of a tree." Sure enough, the land was tipping up. Not in bits and pieces as it had done before, but the whole of it. It was extraordinary. Moonface was frightened. He tried to get to a tree and he shouted to the others, "Catch hold of a tree! Hurry up!" But not one of them could, for they had left the wood behind them and were in a field. Slowly and surely the land tipped sideways, and the children and Moonface and the old Saucepan Man began to roll downhill on their cushions. They were not bruised, but they were very much frightened. What would happen to them if they rolled right off the land? Down they went and down, nearer and nearer to the edge of the rocking land. And then, quite suddenly, Moonface disappeared. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. It was most peculiar. But in half a minute they heard his voice, lifted up in the greatest excitement. I say, everyone, I've fallen down the hole to the ladder that leads to the faraway tree. Quite by accident. I'll throw my cushions up through the hole so you'll know where it is. Roll to it if you can, but hurry. Then the children and the saucepan man saw 2 cushions appear, and they knew where the hole was. They did their best to roll to it, and one by one they got nearer and nearer. Beth rolled right down to it, plop, and caught hold of the ladder as she fell. Joe rolled down next, missed the ladder, and landed with a bump on the top branch of the faraway tree. The saucepan man rolled to it next, but he got stuck in the hole, for he was now so fat with cushions, as well as kettles and saucepans, that he could hardly get through. "Oh, quick, quick, quick!" shouted Joe. "Get in, saucepan man, get in! Poor Franny will roll right past the hole if you don't hurry up." The saucepan man saw Franny was rolling past. Poor Franny! Once she rolled past the hole, she couldn't possibly roll back again, for it would all be uphill. Quick as lightning, the saucepan man reached out his hand and caught hold of one of the ropes that tied Franny's cushion on her back. She stopped with a jerk. One of the saucepan man's kettles gave way and he fell through the hole to the ladder, making a tremendous noise. Moonface caught him, and then the saucepan man gave a tug at Franny's rope and she came down the hole too, landing softly on the top branch of the faraway tree, for she was well padded with her cushions. "Well, thank goodness you found the hole, Moonface," said everyone, still looking rather scared. "What an adventure!" My goodness me, that was exciting. There's going to be another chapter today as well, because I want to get through the book before the end of term. So I'm going to go and get a cup of tea. You might want to have a little break now as well, and then come back to the next chapter in a minute. Okay, bye for now. Hi year ones, I'm back. Got my cup of tea. I'm all ready for the next chapter. I'm going to make myself comfortable. I'm going to see if there's a dog that wants to join me. You might get the other dog today. Now this is Luna. Normally you get Poppy. So Luna wants to join in today. So chapter 17. An invitation from Moonface and Silky. Nobody had really enjoyed their visit to the rocking land, which had been a mistake anyhow. They sat in Moonface's house, untying their cushions from their backs and fronts and looking at all the bruises they had got. "What shall we do with these cushions?" said Beth. "Moonface could do with them, I expect," said Franny. "He uses such a lot for his slippery slip." "Don't you, Moonface?" "Yes, they'd do very well," said Moonface, his big face beaming joyfully. "Some of mine are getting very old and worn. We can't possibly give them back to that cross old woman in the rocking land, so we might as well put them to some use here." "Right," said Joe, and he handed Moonface his 2 cushions. Everyone else did the same. Moonface was pleased. He poured lemonade for everyone, then handed round a little box of what looked like all sorts of toffee. "I don't feel as if I ever want to see what land is at the top of the faraway tree again," said Joe, as he munched a peculiar piece of toffee, which seemed to get bigger in his mouth instead of smaller. "Neither do I," said Beth. "I certainly never will," said Franny. "It seems as if there are never any lands there worth visiting. They are all most uncomfortable." "Except my little land," said the saucepan man, rather mournfully. "I was always very comfortable there." Joe's toffee was now so big that he couldn't say a word. Then it suddenly exploded in his mouth, went to nothing, and left him feeling most astonished. "Oh dear, did you take a toffee shock?" said Moonface, noting Joe's surprised face. "I'm so sorry. Take a different one." "No, thank you," said Joe, feeling that one toffee shock was quite enough. "I think we'd really be better be going. It must be getting late." "What's going to happen to the old saucepan man now that he's lost his land?" asked Beth. Picking up a yellow cushion, ready to slide down the tree. Oh, he'll live with Mr. What's-his-name, said Moonface. Hello, he's taken a toffee shop by mistake. Oh, do watch him. They all watched. The Saucepan Man's toffee shock had got enormous and was about to explode. It did, and went back down to nothing again in his mouth. The Saucepan Man blinked his eyes and looked so astonished that everyone shouted with laughter. That was a toffee shock you were eating, said Moonface. A coffee clock, said the Saucepan Man, even more surprised. Dear me. Come on, said Beth, giggling. It's time we went. See you another day. Moonface, goodbye, Saucepan Man. She shot off down the slide, round and round, and out of the trapdoor at the bottom. Then Franny slid off, and then Joe. Goodbye, he called. Goodbye. Mother was astonished to see their bruises. Whatever have you been doing? She said. I shan't let you play with the Saucepan Man again, if you come home like this. And how dirty your clothes are. Joe longed to tell Mother about the rocking land and their adventure there, but he felt sure she would think he was making it all up. So he said nothing and went off to change his dirty clothes. Things did not go very well the next week. Father lost some money one night, and Mother could not get very much washing to do. So money was very scarce, and the children did not have as much to eat as they would have liked. If only we could have a few hens, sighed Mother. They would at least give us eggs to eat, and a little goat would give us milk. And what I want is a new garden shovel, said Father. Mine broke yesterday, and I can't get on with my garden. It's very important that we should grow as many vegetables as possible, for we can't afford to buy them. To make things worse, their father was very cross with them for having spoilt their clothes the day that they had gone off with the Saucepan Man. If that's the way you treat the only nice clothes you have, you will all just have to stay at home and not go out at all, he scolded. The children did not like being scolded, and Beth mended their clothes as nicely as she could. 2 weeks went by, and the children had not even had 2 hours to themselves to go and see Moonface. He'll be wondering what has happened to us, said Franny. Moonface certainly was wondering. He had waited each day and each night to see the children, and he and Silky wondered what was the matter. We'll send the barn owl with a note to tell the children to come quickly, said Silky at last. So she slipped down the faraway tree to the hole where the barn owl lived. She knocked at his door and he pecked it open. What is it? He asked in a hoarse voice. Oh, Barney dear, will you take this note to the children at their little cottage over by the wood? Asked Silky in her sweetest voice. You're going out hunting tonight, aren't you? Yes, said the barn owl, and he took the note in one of his great clawed feet. I'll take it. He slammed the door shut behind him and rose into the air on great creamy wings, as silent as the wind. He flew to the children's cottage. They are in bed, asleep. Barney sat on the tree outside and screeched loudly. The children awoke with a jump. Whatever's that? Said Beth. Joe came into the room. Did you hear that? He asked. Whatever could it be? The barn owl screeched again. He certainly had a dreadful voice. The children jumped. Joe went bravely to the window and looked out. Is anyone being hurt? He called. Eee! Screeched the owl again, and Joe nearly fell out of the window with fright. The barn owl spread his great soft wings and flew to Joe. He dropped the note on the windowsill, screeched again, I'm not very good at screeching, and flew off into the night to look for mice and rats. It was a barn owl, said Joe. It left a note. Quick, turn on your bedside lamp and let's see what the letter says. They turned the lamp on and crowded round the note. This is what it said. Dear Joe, Beth and Franny, why don't you come to see us? Are you upset? Please come soon, because there is a wonderful land at the top of the tree now. It It is the land of take what you want. If you want anything, you can usually get it there for nothing. Do come and we'll all go together. Love from Moonface and Silky. Ooh, said Franny, excited. The land of take what you want. Well, I'd like to get a few hens. And I'd like a goat, said Beth. And I'd like a new shovel for Father, said Joe. But then he frowned. I'd quite made up my mind not to go up to any more of these strange lands, he said. You just never know what might happen there. We'd better not go. Oh, Joe, cried Beth, please let's go. After all, if there is a nice land, we might as well visit it. Shh, you'll wake up Mother, said Joe. We'll see tomorrow what happens. If we can get some time to ourselves, we'll go and ask Moonface if the land really safe to go to. Now we'd better go to bed and sleep. But they didn't sleep much. No, they were all wondering what the land of take what you want was like and if they were really going to visit it tomorrow. It's a great chapter, this one. I want you to be having a think, and this is going to be on one of your questions about if you could take what you want from any land, what would you take? Would it be something for yourself or would it be something for somebody else? Okay, so tomorrow's video will be the next 2 chapters. Okay, I'm going to go back to my cup of tea now. Take care for now.